Hi, this is Mike Hendrickson from Velocity, New York. I'm here with Jason Grigsby. Jason, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
So what do you do?
I'm one of the co-founders of Cloud4.
Okay.
We help companies figure out their mobile strategy, help them implement mobile web and HTML5 applications.
Okay. And so the mobile web is exploding, right?
Yes.
It's been exploding for a while.
Correct.
So what is the biggest piece of advice, or maybe 4 pieces of advice, you could give a developer to make sure that they have a responsive and highly performant website?
Well, I guess it depends on what their implementation strategy is, like what they're attempting to do. A lot of what I see designers and developers getting excited about is responsive design.
Right.
And in responsive design, we know statistically that 90-some% of responsive designs are actually built in a way that's bloated. They're basically, what people do is they take their desktop site and they add some media queries to it, and they hide images that aren't necessary on mobile devices, or they simply size them down to fit on mobile. And so you've got something that looks good on a mobile device, but is actually far, far too big. It's kind of like if you're having people over for dinner and you don't have time to clean, so you just shove everything in the closet.
It's
like
lipstick on a pig.
Your house may look clean, but it's not actually clean.
Yes.
Like a lot of the responsive designs are look great on phones, but are 4.5 megs or larger.
So is responsive design, though, is this something that we're now calling a new meme? Or because I know UX a couple years ago was the popular thing to look at, and now it seems like responsive design is like everyone's talking about that.
Right.
Is it just a fad or a phase, or is it something that's really important?
I don't think that it's a fad or a phase. For one primary reason, I think that it's actually recognizing the web as the medium that it was always intended to be. Like there's nothing. We have created sites and pages and applications with fixed widths. Like the web has never had fixed widths, and so when we talk about building things that are inherently responsive, that adjust based on the size of the screen, that adjust to the characteristics of the browser that's consuming that information or services, we're actually building stuff that's actually truer to what the web as a medium has been doing all along. We sort of screwed it up.
Who's we?
Like web developers, web designers.
Yeah.
So in that way, I don't think that it is. I think the bigger question will be whether, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whether we still refer to responsive web design or whether we just call it web design. Like it just goes away as a...
Like Web 2.0 has gone away as a meme because everyone does that.
Right.
Right. So responsive, let's tease out the one word.
Okay.
What does responsive mean? Is it like the Obamacare site that's not responsive?
So responsive, of course that is a definition of it as well, but responsive design is about building websites that respond to different screen sizes. Essentially, the layouts adjust, the size of images adjust. Basically, those sorts of things adjust as the size of the screen is different. So you can build a single code base and have it work for everything from small screens all the way up to large screens. That's in essence what responsive design is about. It contains 3 techniques: media queries, flexible grids, or fluid grids and flexible images.
And so you can still get performance with these different layouts from one source.
Correct, yes, if you do extra work.
Extra work.
Yes, so most responsive designs, like I said, are simply taking desktop sites and adding on media queries to them. In order to do something that's performant, you need to build mobile-first responsive designs. You have to start from the small screen and progressively enhance to the larger screens. And you also need to make sure that you're handling things like images very carefully to make sure that you've got different size images that are getting downloaded based on the size of the screen.
So mobile first is another term I've heard lately quite a bit. Is that something new that's coming, or is that something that should be around?
So mobile first, there are 2 definitions. There's mobile first as like a broad concept, which is a design theory. This idea that if you design something for small screens, that because of the constraints of small screens, you'll end up with a better design across all of the different form factors. Mobile-first responsive design is a technical implementation. It's specifically saying we're going to have a baseline experience this baseline experience is going to be what happens if no media queries execute. It's a fast experience. It's also the small screen experience, and then the CSS is actually ordered so that the cascade of CSS happens from small screen up to larger screen. The smallest images are the default images, larger images come in later. So it's actually a technical implementation. It's confusing because they're two things that are different, that are both using mobile first, but one's an implementation, one's a design theory.
Okay. So in all of your work at Cloud4, you're consulting with a lot of people on making highly performant sites.
Correct.
And specifically with mobile.
Correct.
So what is the biggest barrier or the biggest problem that developers have that you see when you're called in to help them speed things up or make things better?
It's
the reoccurring pattern.
Yeah, I would say that the problems, it's not necessarily performance, but performance is a piece of it. It's usually process changes, right? So you take an organization we were talking to recently, they've got 800,000 images. The way that those images have gone onto their site in the past is that they came from locations around the globe. Photographers would take photographs, they'd get sent into central headquarters, their process would send them somewhere in Latin America where they would get resized appropriately and cut and image manipulation, and then they were put into the CMS. And all of this piece happens. So 800,000 images, if you start doing that responsive, you probably want, say at minimum, 3 different image sizes. That's 2.4 million different images. And then maybe you want to support Retina displays as well. That's 4.8 million images. Being able to take that whole process, which touches people in multiple continents, and change that process around to be something that will actually work so that they can get the correct images in and have a system that will output the correct size images for different resolutions is not a small undertaking. It means systematizing something that in the past, and it could be argued that somewhere before 800,000 images, they shouldn't have been manually cutting images, but they were able to do it. In this future world, it just no longer makes sense to, Adam Bradley recently said that Save for the Web, which is the thing that Adobe added to Photoshop to make Photoshop understand the web, that Save for the Web should be a thing of the past, because it no longer makes any sense for us as individuals to modify images and make sure that they're the correct size. That all needs to be handed on the server side. So I see a lot of that sort of stuff where you're talking both processes and systems that need to change, in sometimes pretty dramatic ways, so that people can learn how to do things in a responsive design.
Okay, so that was kind of the problems you see. If there was one thing that developers could do to make their website more responsive, better able to handle
performance perspective,
from a performance, and better able to handle mobile, what is the one thing that people can do that you think is the easiest low-hanging fruit?
So I would argue that I've written about this, that the number one thing that people can do to make their site better for mobile devices is just to make it faster. Not even worry about reformatting it for small screens. Because here's the thing. Any mobile device, nearly any mobile device out there, has really great tools to enable somebody to interact with the desktop site, right? You can double tap to zoom in, you can pinch zoom, you can do all this sort of stuff. There is no amount of gestures, no number of screens, number of fingers you can put on the screen to make the thing load faster, right? All they're going to do is stick a middle finger up in the air as they run away from your site, right? That is the number one thing. Past that, when people start doing stuff that's actually responsive design, they need to do it mobile-first responsive design, and they need to test on real hardware.
And is that what you're talking about tomorrow afternoon? Mobile-first responsive design?
Well, it's primarily about responsive images and video, which are the biggest issues, but I will be addressing mobile-first responsive design and sort of the general problems with responsive design from a performance perspective.
Excellent. Jason, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Look forward to seeing it. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.